All right, here were my favorites from the week of August 9th through August 15th. It was a cool week. Got out a little bit, but also kiddos' first week in kindergarten, so spent a lot of time getting that going and stoked for that. So we'll jump in. There was a few days on the water where I actually found sunlight. Yeah, so we're going to start with a young offshore bottlenose. I always am a fan of these water splashes and the details, and as far as both, the water splashes and the details are great, but also on some of these, the coloration through the ocean surface is fun as well. So I always dig those. I always like sending those around. Next one is a similar thing, same pod. This is a larger dolphin. This one, I'm always a fan of those bubbles right before they, blast into a spray. And then you can see the little dots of water coming off the rostrum. And then really what adds to this shot to me is the reflection and the coloration working down towards the bottom right and being able to capture that motion too. So really adding a dynamic through that shot. Now, on days where it's bright, and I find that I'm not sure I see a whole lot of difference shooting between like 1/2000th and 1/5000th. So I actually try to up the aperture to get a little bit more depth of field so that, I'm more suited and more likely to get, the rostrum in focus as well as maybe the dorsal or some compromise therein. Also, it takes some of the pressure off having the focus pick up exactly where you want. So on bright days, that's one way to do it. The ISO, I was still running decently high on these, but I did up the aperture. Next one's kind of the same thing. Another, I'm going to probably pause a lot of these, but another look at, the shape of the water, the contours, how it shapes coming off the flanks. You can see the sun highlights. Again, you've got the reflection coming down. So I find these enjoyable. I find them relaxing. It's this weird combination of this instantaneous moment, this 1/2000th of a second. So it's happening very, very fast in real life, but you stop it like this and you can really dive in and look at it. Pretty funny sea lion just floating out in the kelp about 10 miles out. Always a fan of side-eye. I feel like I give a lot of side-eye out. It probably reminds me of how I feel like I might accidentally look a lot of the time. And then here's a shot of it. It was yawning, but to me it looks like it's yelling an expletive. That's just how I interpret it. But I like these shots too. They go over to some of the groups that I work with. It's intriguing to be able to look inside the mouth and see kind of, the natural teeth, what's going on there, and just some other details that are maybe taken a little bit beyond just a snapshot of a sea lion. Came across Risso's dolphins. Rissos are really cool. They're a bigger dolphin, kind of round head, but they each have unique coloring, so they're born pretty dark, and then as they scar, either from rake marks from other dolphins, from fighting squid, which is kind of their primary food source, bumping into each other, whatever it might be, their skin doesn't repigment. So they get these unique markings down their bodies, and it's a very cool individual look. Not a lot of dolphins kind of lack some of that individual, but you can look here and there's going to be no two that have the same set of markings. This one's got a lot of white showing through. It's been through a lot. It's probably a little older. Still single blowhole, as with all toothed whales. And then interestingly enough, I read that these guys only have teeth on their bottom jaw. So kind of unique. Again, all of them have a little different look as far as the scarring. This one, you've got the eye just barely visible. again, just it's cool to be able to see, and you can kind of see, I think, some of the differences between fresher scars or maybe deeper when you look really close here at this scarring behind the eye. So we've been seeing squid offshore because these guys are around, but also the bottlenose have been eating squid. We saw big chunks of squid coming up the other day when we were watching the bottlenose feed. One last look at a dorsal. Pair of leaping common dolphins. Always fun to get them in sequence. I thought this was a strong photo. You've got the one arched and the one kind of flat, but you've got this water spray, you know, as they explode out of the water. You've got a little bit of shadowing here, and then it kind of dulls out everywhere else in the background. So this shot was done... Yeah, so it's a 10 on the aperture, so it was able to give me a little bit more depth of field and kind of capitalize on both of the dolphins being in focus a little better than if I had been shooting it a little faster, and maybe I wouldn't have had as much depth of field. This was cool. I'd never seen one of these. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and let me know. But my iPhone, when I enlarged it and put them in there, said that this is a magnificent Frigatebird. And I showed it to a couple of the captains who come from back east, and you know, they're like, "Oh yeah, those are cool birds. They're rather big. They're rather fast. They try not to get wet very much, I'm told." So this one I was watching, there was I think they were bonito. I'm not a fisherman. Bonita. I might be I know I'm wrong, but you know what I mean. But it was chasing the bait fish up, and as the bait fish were jumping out of the way of the bigger fish, the game fish, the birds were picking them up off of before they'd land back in. So it was pretty impressive. My wife's always telling me I don't shoot enough portrait stuff, so we were out kind of a hazy, low light, high glare day. But I was able to get some of the skyline here of San Diego downtown, as well as some of, you know, OB and the OB Hills with a common dolphin coming out vertical. This guy, again, so says my phone. I'm not a great birder, so if you know I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm definitely always down to hear it. This is a red-necked Phalarope. And I'd never really noticed these details back here on its back or along its wings, so that's kind of what stood out to me when I snapped these photos. Another look at it right here. You can kind of see the coloring details, which are always fun. You know, the older I get, I guess, the more I'm getting into birds, which I'm told is you get into weather and birds as you close in on 50. Speaking of birds, there's some shearwaters. I'm always a fan of shearwaters taking off because they run instead of pushing with both feet. They kind of like run through it, and they leave these equal spaced splashes behind them. Thought this was an interesting shot. You know, it's kind of centered in the middle of the composition. You've got the one that's stationary and the one that's about to be in flight. This shot was same sort of thing. There was a lot of light. It wasn't bright light, but there was a lot of light, so I was able to run it at f10 and 1/2000th of a second, which freezes the water pretty well and allows you to get even a twitchy bird kind of stopped on the image. Closer look as it ran off. Yeah, this one you can see the spacing as it goes. Still kind of one leg in, one leg out. Not the strongest shot in the world. I like sending them around to people, and I put them on my blog. So this was my shot that was my spirit animal of the week, probably. This is an osprey wrestling with a rather big fish in the San Diego river mouth. It ended up getting the fish. It was basically as big as the osprey's body. It was pretty impressive, but it did have to wrestle it quite a bit, and then it had to struggle to take off a couple times, and other birds were looking like they were going to take it from the osprey. I didn't think that was going to happen. This is a decent sized osprey. I'm not really into the circle of life posts, so I don't keep any of those images unless there's something really, really intriguing that, a group needs to see beyond my friends and family. I don't need to send them, predation. But something about this guy with his one wing up, like, here I am, resigned to what's going on. Obviously, compared to the real moment, this all happened super fast. It was fighting with a fish. But when you stop it like this, I felt like it spoke to me this week. Like, yeah, here I am. So I got a kick out of it. Couple more that I got a kick out of or shared with the Seal Society. There's been high tides this last week or so these guys have been more frequently up on the walkway, and so I coned him off. The cone's just outside of the photo. This is first thing in the morning. Usually as people come around, they get motivated to not be there again, but I wanted to get a couple shots of the do not approach sea lions text here on the wall with the sea lion. I thought that was an interesting photo. It was made even better by the fact that it's kind of in front of this this sign about the seals and sea lions down in La Jolla. And another look at that. Not sure which one I really like better. This one you've got more of the face details, but it's there's less arch, less movement, so to speak, in the composition. And then the frontal shot. Now, let me remind you, I'm shooting all of this with long lens. Even though these are being shot, pretty sure these are 200 millimeters. This one was at 264 millimeters, so I'm still appropriately far away. You can see that animal is not reacting to my presence, which is 100% my goal when I'm shooting wildlife. Is I'm not here to make you look at me. I'm not here to put my phone right in your face and get this photo. I've got a setup where I can shoot it from a ways away and do my thing. I liked this one. It's sort of laid out. You can see the length of its flippers. Kind of probably a little bit younger male. You still have the do not approach sign behind him and the graphic here. I thought it was an intriguing shot. Not really something I don't foresee selling per se as far as prints, but it'll probably go up on something somewhere. And then the last couple photos, I went out yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, and it was pretty chunky. Storms kind of coming in, and we ended up with some short beak common dolphins that were just sort of cruising. And that was kind of about it except for this Mola. And this guy was pretty boat not worried, which is unusual for the Molas I've seen. Usually we don't get a very long look at him. This one kind of floated for a while and then it actually came over by the boat and looked at us while we looked at it. So anytime that I feel like an animal's looking at me, observing it in the water, it's intriguing. I'm not looking for that experience on land because it's not what that is. But in the water, these guys, he's a fish. He can drop down and do whatever he wants. He doesn't need to be up by the boat unless he wants to be. And so it's a little different feeling. And this eye contact is something pretty cool, even if it is arguably a really goofy looking fish. Ironically, for parents, my daughter and I had been watching the day before some of the highlights of the Nautilus, the little the EV that they've got underwater, and they've got their dialogue overlaid. And they came across a Mola, and they were saying, "Oh, they're so lazy, and they do this and that, and they're really not ever up to anything." And it was true in the footage they were showing. But I said to my daughter, I said, "Well, I've seen these guys breach right offshore with us." And she looks at me and goes, "Dad, they're on YouTube. They know what they're talking about." And he stuttered me for a second. I thought, well, I'm on all that stuff too. But it was just funny that, my daughter wanted nothing to do with what I've seen or done based on, they're on the TV. So that wraps it up for this week. If you've enjoyed these, check out my blog. All the camera settings and maybe some more notes are on there. If you're on a video hosting site, I do link to my blog below. Jump over to my website. You can check out many weeks of these videos and the photo blogs. And I sell prints. I do image licensing, and we have a coffee table book and probably a kiddos book coming out towards the end of the year. So we invite you to stay up and keep an eye out for that.